and Nephilim trilogy made the CBA's bestsellers list and continues to thrill readers a decade later. He actually received an honorary doctorate from Pacific International University for his work on that trilogy. So Dr. L.A. Marzulli is also the author of the nonfiction work Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, which shows how the current political landscape may indeed be bringing about fulfillment of ancient biblical prophecy. One of his latest works, The Alien Interviews, features 17 intense interviews with people who have been directly involved with the UFO phenomena and alien abductions. L.A. has lectured on this and other fascinating subjects at conferences and churches all over America, as well as on numerous national radio and television shows across the airwaves. And now it's my privilege to welcome him here to the Revolutionary Radio Project for the second time, actually. L.A., are you there?
I certainly am, Ron. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man, great to have you back. You also have something I didn't mention in your intro there. You have a DVD series you're working on called The Watchers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we do. Watchers, the kickoff of the series is called just Watchers, and the subtitle is UFOs Are Real, Burgeoning, and Not Going Away. It's sort of a primer into the UFO phenomena. It's a great DVD to give a skeptic because all we're doing is showing that something's going on here, folks. We don't tell you what it is, but something is going on. It's high strangeness. The phenomena exists. I love when Edgar Mitchell comes on. We have a voiceover of Edgar Mitchell saying that, Roswell was a cover-up. They've been here. The governments of the world have covered this up. I mean, Edgar Mitchell's an Apollo astronaut. Why is he telling us this? He's not just blowing smoke. The second DVD is called Signs in the Heavens and Earth. And what we put forth to the viewer on that DVD is the idea that it's not business as usual with all the earthquakes, the famine, floods, volcanic activity, and other anomalies, weather anomalies. It's not business as usual. It's something more. And, of course, I believe that we are in the birth pains. So Signs in the Heavens and Earth sort of touch base with Matthew 24, where Yeshua, Jesus, warns us what will be the signs of the second coming. We're actually working on Watchers 3, which are called Fingerprints of the Supernatural. In that we discuss the Shroud of Turin, the strange anomalous sounds that are being heard throughout the world, certainly the earthquakes, the Torah codes, and other interesting topics. And that should be out around Thanksgiving.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that one. I have your other two, so that should be cool. You mentioned the Shroud of Turin. That's pretty cool, man. You're gonna deal with that in that particular episode?
Yeah, we're talking about the Shroud. We interviewed Dame Isabel Pixek, who brings a very unique perspective to the Shroud. One is she's a particle physicist, so she looks at the Shroud and begins to postulate how the image was created. She's also a world-class muralist, and she, will sign an affidavit that the Shroud is not a painting. It is not a painting. There are no brush strokes. There is no pigment, per se, found on the Shroud. So it's really interesting. The other gentleman that we interviewed was Barry Schwartz. He was the original photographer for the Shroud of Turin Research Project in 1978. Out of 120 hours that they were allowed to examine the Shroud, Schwartz was awake, kind of forced himself with a lot of coffee for over 100 hours. So he brings also a very good perspective to the Shroud.
There's a guy, I don't remember if this is his name or not. I think it's Ian Wilson. Does that name ring a bell?
No, not offhand.
This was back in the late 90s. I was writing a script called The Omega Conspiracy. I think we talked about this before. I had no idea that I.D. Thomas already had a book by that title, but I was writing a script, a screenplay that dealt with cloning from the Shroud of Turin. I kind of had this idea of somebody decided to clone Jesus. It probably wouldn't come out very well. And I actually pitched it. I pitched it at an L.A. pitch conference, but before that, I had posted it on Francis Ford Coppola's website. He's got a website called zoetrope.com where writers can submit and have peer reviews and whatnot. And I had a lot of great reviews, tons of great reviews. I was all excited to go pitch my story. The last review that came in was a 6-page review that totally shredded it. This guy just ripped me apart. And I was like, oh, man. But after I got over it, I thought, you know, if somebody's going to spend the time to write a 6-page review, maybe he's got something to say. So I went back and reread it a few times and realized, oh, man, this script stinks, man. I got to rewrite this. And I'm getting on a plane the next morning to go from Massachusetts to L.A. And so on the plane ride out there, I rewrote an outline for the script, and that's what I pitched. I pitched it to several studios, and the studio that made Close Encounters of the Third Kind was interested in it. They wanted to option it, but so I'm like, crap, I don't have anything, you know. All I wrote was an outline, so I said, hey, I'm in the process of a rewrite. Can I get back to you? And they said, sure. So I left there, and I had parked underneath, what is that place where they have the Academy Awards, Kodak Theater or something like that?
Yeah.
I can't remember. Yeah, I was parked underground there in the underground parking lot, and when I pulled out of the parking lot, I went to turn, and I turned to my left to see if there's any traffic coming. There was a dumpster, and somebody had spray painted on the dumpster, "Clone Jesus?" ? And I'm like, whoa, is this like a sign, you know? And somehow during all that, I ended up getting connected. I think the guy's name is Ian Wilson. He was one of the guys that was really involved with a lot of the Shroud investigation there for a while. He was out in Boston. We had a lot of interesting conversations about it. So without giving too much away from your DVD, what's your take on it? You think it's authentic?
Oh, absolutely. I think the Shroud is the real deal. It is. I would call it God's calling card, or certainly the fingerprints of the supernatural. You know, they didn't even know what they had until the invention of photography in the 20th century, or let's put it this way, when in the 19th century photography was invented. But the Shroud was photographed by Secunda Pia, I believe, in the 30s, 1939, I believe. Could be wrong on that date. It might be a lot earlier. But he had glass plates, and the story goes, which is just a wonderful story, you know, he took pictures of the Shroud, and it was interesting, but when he went into the developing room to develop the pictures, to his utter amazement, and remember, we're in the digital age, so there's no more film, but back then that's what they had, and so, you know, the young people won't understand this, but the oldsters will. They had negatives, which then were developed into positives. So the image that was taken in early photography was a negative image. And to his utter amazement, when he began to develop the film, what should have been a negative image was in fact a positive image, which means that the image on the Shroud is a negative image, which begs the question, how would a forger know that, you know, hundreds of years later, someone would invent photography? Obviously they wouldn't. It's not a forgery. It is, I just call it the fingerprints, or God's calling card, fingerprints of the supernatural. I believe it's the real deal. The forensic evidence alone is overwhelming and contradicts many of the iconographic works of art that we have been inundated with since medieval times, basically showing the Christ figure without a really bloody scourging in most pictures. It's sort of sanitized and cleaned up, and the hands are painted in the palms. Well, it's what the Shroud shows is that the nail actually came through the back of the hand by the wrist, and that's the only place where you could hang someone, that you could just literally pin them to a cross through those bones there. Just fascinating. Plus, the forensic evidence shows that the scourging was particularly brutal. I mean, just the scourging, when he falls twice on the way to Calvary, it's for a reason. When he can't carry the cross anymore, it's for a reason. I mean, he was brutalized literally within an inch of his life. The only place that they did not whip was the area directly over his heart. Had they done that, he would have died on the whipping post. The scourging and the marks of the scourging are just incredibly brutal. And then on top of that, you've got the crown of thorns, which is more of a helmet of thorns, which was then pounded into his head. The wound from the spear shows up on the Shroud. And once again, the forensic evidence is consistent with modern-day forensics. We see a mixture of what the Bible tells us, or the written account of that, a mixture of blood and water pouring out, and that's exactly what we see on the Shroud. and it's obviously with the forensics that we have, we realize it's it looks like water, but it's actually a fluid that surrounds, I believe, in the pericardium. So all this is just incredibly accurate. There's no way a forger can duplicate this kind of stuff, in my opinion. It's just impossible. So it speaks of another physics that Dame Isabel Dixek discusses in our presentation that we know nothing about. She believes it's a point of singularity where it's sort of like a new Big Bang or a reverse Big Bang type of a deal, and it points to the new atom, the resurrection. Of course, Christians, those of us who are born from above, believe this anyway, that the resurrection is a prototype of where we're all headed. So it's just fascinating. I think it's the most enigmatic and interesting artifact on planet Earth.
Yeah, I agree completely, man. I was obsessed with researching on that back in the late 90s, and I came to all the same conclusions you just talked about. That it's like a Polaroid. It's a snapshot of the resurrection. It's like, boom.
Yeah, I agree.
Most significant events of all of history right there captured for us to see. Pretty amazing. And on your other DVDs, Watchers 1 and 2, you talked about a bunch of things like cattle mutilation, alien implants, and grays and stuff. What's your take on that? What's the deal with cattle mutilation?
Well, first of all, with the cattle mutilation, it's very deliberate. And when a farmer comes out and sees his prized bull completely mutilated, all the blood drained from it, in some cases, again, the heart has been removed from the pericardium, but there's no incision. How can that possibly be? The animal has drained the blood. There's no footprints around it. The coyotes won't get near it. And this is high strangeness. And, there are people who are saying that certain aspects of our government are doing this. They see black helicopters. But as of this date, and this has been going on for decades, law enforcement has yet brought charges against anyone. I mean, this is obviously a felony. It's trespassing. It's animal cruelty. It's mutilation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Law enforcement has of yet brought charges against anyone. They just haven't done it because they can never find anyone. The perpetrators seem to vanish into thin air. Also, there's some interesting parallels here. It's Linda Moulton Allen, a MUFON investigator, produced a DVD called Strange Harvest, which is now, I think, several decades old, actually. And she won an award for it because it was groundbreaking. And she calls it a strange harvest because, what is going on here? Why are these entities so interested in genetic material? Why are these entities so interested in the blood or the DNA? We see eyes cored out with laser-like precision, literally. Sex organs cored out. Anus is cored out. It's very grisly. In my opinion, it sends a message. I mean, all they have to do is just take the cow and drop it someplace else, like in the ocean or something, and no one would ever be the wiser. But that's not the case. It's extremely deliberate. They put it back in the farmer's field, and basically it sends a signal to not only the farmer, but law enforcement as well, that we come and go with complete impunity. We can do whatever we want, and you can't stop us. This sends a message, and farmers who experience this, cattle ranchers who experience this, are, needless to say, really disturbed by what they see. Really disturbed, and rightfully so. And it begs the question, who is doing it and why? And, of course, in my opinion, it goes back to, we know where I'm going with this, back into Genesis 6, the whole idea, when I asked Chuck Missler, when we interviewed him for Watchers 2, we were also doing Watchers 4, and we asked him about the Nephilim, and I said, Chuck, do you believe that there's modern-day Nephilim? And Missler answered, by the way, without hesitation on his part. He said, yeah, Satan's at number 2 to 1, he's building an army. So whether it's genetic manipulation or fallen angel sex with women or some sort of combination of the two, while we really can't tell or say exactly what it is, something is going on, and I find it extremely disturbing.
Yeah. Did you see the latest Tron movie, the remake there? Or I guess it's considered a sequel.
Yeah, I watched part of it.
A line toward the end of it, and the bad guy there, the good Jeff Bridges character said, he can't create anything of his own. He's building an army. He can only repurpose old models.
Yeah.
So right. Yeah, I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, the genetic material and the manipulation that the fallen one is doing, he can't create anything of his own. It's like Frankenstein. He's taking a bit of this and a bit of that and creating a hybrid on some level. At least that's what some of us believe.
So do you think that the alien grays are just basically biosuits for demons?
That's my take on it, yeah. I think the grays are biological biosuits that allow the demonic, literally demons, which are disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. I realize there are people that don't agree with that. That's fine. Have a different take on it. But I believe, as others do, like C.S. Larkin, J.R. Church, Pember, and a whole host of other people, believe that demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim left over from the flood. They are earthbound spirits. And so they need something to inhabit. We see proof of this when Yeshua cast out the demons from the man of the tomb. And he asked, "Who are you? Legion, for we are many." Well, these many demons are inhabiting this one man. And when he casts them out, of course, they go into the herd of swine. So the fallen one knows that he needs them to manifest in this dimension. And so he creates this bodysuit, biological bodysuit, which are, they all look the same. And these demonic entities can inhabit them. And I realize that for people who have never traveled with this stuff, this sounds beyond science fiction, as Jim Williamson's book is so aptly titled. And it is. I mean, we are dealing with, as my friend Gary Schultz used to say, the fallen one, the dragon, Satan, is a super scientist. I mean, he is. He's a super scientist, a demented one. But nonetheless, he's brilliant at what he can do. And I think that we Christians have a tendency to put the fallen one in a box, and I think that's a very dangerous position because, in my opinion, I don't see anything in Scripture that in some ways limit. I'd rather err to his ability. I'd rather err to the side of, or take the position, err to the side or take the position that he's capable of a lot more than what we give him credit for. When 2 Thessalonians says that the fallen comes with all signs and lying wonders, I think we would do well to take that literally and understand that what is coming on this earth will deceive even the elect if that were possible.
Yeah, that's actually the reason why I'm doing everything I'm doing. That scripture's always freaked me out, man. I mean, when you hear that scripture, that it could be possible that even the elect could be deceived, and this deception is going to be so great, man, my prayer became, Lord, I don't want to be in that category. I mean, I want to do everything I can to learn and be educated so that I don't get deceived, and furthermore, do everything I can to try to dispense that information so that other people won't be deceived, because I believe it's serious, man. I think it's really, really serious. We need to start paying attention. And this stuff, a lot of people think it's just science fiction. They think it's crazy, tinfoil hat, Kool-Aid drinking stuff, but it's real. As you say, UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. I mean, I put together a little 8-minute montage of UFO sightings just in the last 2 to 3 years. It's 8 minutes long, and there's been just about that many in the last few months is what I put together in that that video. I mean, it is rapidly increasing. And speaking of that, you covered the UFO over the Temple Mount. I know a lot of people thought that was legitimate. You take a different take. You have a different take on it. Can you talk a little bit about that? What did you find out regarding the?
We spoke to a special effects wizard that works in Hollywood, and we showed him that this guy doesn't really have a UFO dog in the hunt. Okay, so we said, look, what do you think of this? And he watched it. He said, wow, it looks pretty convincing. Until it flashed upward. When it streaked upward, he just went, oh, that's a post-production effect called a stretch. Just like that, bam. And just, instantly said that. What was interesting, however, is we showed some footage from Dr. Roger Lear. So we knew the source of the footage. We vetted the footage. We know Dr. Lear, whose credentials are impeccable, and he was in Turkey and filmed a craft which had appeared there 3 years in a row or 4 years in a row at the same time, the same day. So he's out there with his camera filming this thing. And, this gentleman in the special effects field in Hollywood looked at it and said, well, that looks fake too. And then we kind of told him, well, it's not fake. So, while it's one reporter's opinion, the verdict is out. I know that some people believe that the Jerusalem UFO is the real deal. I'm not so sure. And I remain very skeptical when I see anything. There was someone sent another video last night to me of yet another sighting over the Temple Mount. And, it looks very convincing. And Richard Shaw, my friend and co-producer of the Watchers series, we took one look at it, and we both said, hoax. It's a fake. It's done in Photoshop. So there's just a lot of nonsense out there. But then you've got the people that, aren't looking for notoriety, aren't trying to do a hoax, and they're out there with their camera, and they see something, and they then they get on film. And there's a lot more of those, I think, than the hoaxes.
Yeah. Yeah, Bevel's definitely ramping up his activity. And one of the other things you deal with in your Watchers series is the whole aspect of the alien implants. What did you discover about that?
Well, what's interesting about this, Rob, is that there are two other researchers who have come to the same conclusion that I have, and there's no collusion between us, and they arrived there through a different set of discipline or a different set of research, I should say. I arrived at this conclusion from talking to Dr. Roger Lear and holding these implants in my hand. So while the skeptics will say, well, these things aren't real, I beg to differ. I've seen them. I mean, these people that are skeptical or some of the naysayers and say that this whole thing is demonic delusion would do well to actually do some research before they start blowing their horn, with all due respect. The phenomena is real. It can be delusional, and it can also be hardcore physical, reality. And this implant was hardcore physical reality. It's got nanotubes. It's got a clock rate, that we've discovered, we've postulated, theorized, that this thing is running about 100 times faster than the fastest computer on the planet. In other words, what these little they have nanotubes in them, Rob. What this little chip could be is like literally a super computer. And what Lear believes, remember, he's got no Nephilim dog in the hunt like we do. He doesn't have it. The guy who just looks at this stuff and, he's a researcher, but he has no Nephilim dog in the hunt. And he told me he believed that these chips, these implants, were changing the host's DNA. And when I heard that, I immediately went to the book of Revelation, and there is a bunch of criteria that is overlooked. And I felt, and this is my, it's all in the Cosmic Chess Match, but I've gone on the air, and the moment I discovered it, even before the chapter was written, I was talking about it. When we look at what Yeshua tells us, it'll be like the days of Noah when he returned. So that begs the question, what differentiates those days? And it's the presence of the fallen angels. I mean, that's certainly the main criteria that differentiates the days of Noah from any other time. It's the presence of the fallen angels and then subsequently the Nephilim. But there's another dynamic there that's often overlooked, and that, of course, is the longevity of people living at the time. Some of these people were living 700, 800, 900 years, all right, which is really an interesting dynamic. So, it's interesting in Scripture, like before the crucifixion, no one ever thought to overlay Isaiah 53 and Psalm 22 together. To the best of my knowledge, no rabbi ever thought to do that. Overlay Psalm 22 with Isaiah 53, you get a very unique painting, if I can use that word, of the crucifixion, hundreds of years before the event. Well, it might be the same thing with this. In other words, when we take that passage of Matthew 24 and we overlay other scriptures, specifically from Revelation, we find that you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade. Okay, we get that. We also find another criteria. Anyone who takes them will be immediately judged and thrown into the lake of fire. Gee, that sounds severe. That sounds a little harsh to me. Where's the loving God that, being told about this little mark of the beast deal, right? It's a whole other thing. Then we read a little further, anyone who takes the mark, grievous sores begin to appear. And then we get to the clincher, and it's this, that in those days, men and women will seek death and not find it. So I've overlaid all that scripture, and I've come up with a scenario. And the scenario is, you take the implant, you take this mark, you take this chip, okay? It will extend your lifespan 500, 600, 700 years disease-free. At least that's what we'll be told, all right? When they show up, they will do two things. There's actually a clip now. I don't know whether you've seen this movie. It's called Thrive, Thrive, Thrive. And
no.
This, you just Google it and watch it. There it is. They're basically right in line with what I've been saying for years. That when ET shows up, it's like a Trojan horse. They will give us two things. One, free energy. And that's what Thrive talks about. Free energy. They take us off the system that we've been under. Everyone rejoices. That's how they gain our trust. A free energy system. Okay? Thrive talks about that. And you remember, they have no end-time scenario here, eschatological dog in the hunt either. They're just a bunch of spiritual New Ager guys going, yeah, man, ET's going to come back and we're all going to thrive and it's going to be great. They're going to have free energy. Well, on the other end of that, you've got, so that they'll offer the free energy, and the clincher is they'll offer this mark to bring you into the new age, the new system. Won't it be wonderful? And it will extend it'll correct your DNA. There'll be no more sickness. There'll be no more birth defects. You'll live to 500 years. The body will repair itself should something happen. It's just marvelous, and people will line up and around the block and trust these guys. And here we are. Look, I'm not making this stuff up. I've held the chip in my hand. The last implant that Dr. Lear took out could not be cut, get this, Rob, could not be cut with a diamond blade saw in a laboratory. You have to take it to another lab, and they cut it open with a laser. Okay? With a laser. And, of course, inside they find nanotechnology.
Wow. Man, that's crazy. But, well, just like the other guys you were talking about, we've done a lot of the same type of research, and so it's kind of natural that I guess the Lord leads us to some of the same conclusions, especially since He's trying to prevent us from being deceived by the coming great deception. You got the three great promises of Lucifer in the garden were, you shall not die, immortality, promise of illumination, their eyes shall be opened, and the promise of godlikeness. He's the Father of lies. They already had all three of those. Death didn't come until after they sinned. As far as their eyes being open, they saw God as He was. They walked with Him, talked with Him in the garden. If they had a question, all they had to do is ask Him. And godlikeness, God made Adam in His image. I mean, how much more like God can you get? It's like the devil totally lied to them and got them to give them what they already had, and in the process they lost it all. And then he turns around and offers them a counterfeit of the whole thing. Yeah, and we're seeing it happen right now in our days, just as it was in the days of Noah. Have you seen the documentary Building Gods?
No, I haven't.
That one, I'll send you a link to it. I'm pretty sure it's still up on Google Video or whatever, but it's with Dr. Mike Warwick, Hugo de Garis, and Nick Bostrom, and they're all talking about their transhumanist agendas and the singularity and their goals to, in fact, Hugo de Garis just comes right out and says it. He says, with this technology that we're working on, we could build gods if we wanted to.
People don't understand what's coming. When I present at conferences, I show a clip called Madness in the Fast Lane. And I do this to show people
what is here, not what's coming, what is already here. What's alarming is both of these women are hit by vehicles in excess of 40 miles an hour. When you look at the damage to the car from the second strike of this woman, her head is smashed, the wind from the second strike of this woman, her head is smashed, the windshield in, it's awesome. I mean, it's just insane what we're looking at. And she's laying on the pavement, on the tarmac, but she's not bleeding anywhere. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, she gets up, and she shakes this female officer off of her like a rag doll. She just shakes her right off. And the man comes up, a male officer comes up, and, he can't constrain her. This is after she's been hit twice by vehicles moving in excess of 40 miles an hour. How can that possibly be? And she's got the strength. She is so strong. It takes 6 people to carry her, spread eagle off the road. 6 people. 2 on each leg. That's 4, right? And then arm. Can you imagine? And she breaks free. I mean, even then, they can't constrain her until she's given a sedative on the side of the road, which knocks her right out. That's it.
Yeah, and then later she's released. It goes out and kills somebody, and then she's walking on the street, and this dude sees her. She's whacking herself on the head with a hammer. And then they chase her again, and she jumps off a bridge like 40 feet or something like that. And, it's like, what are we dealing with here?
What are we dealing with? And they don't. She sustained, fractured ankles, but she's after 40 feet only fractured ankles. And she's getting up and running away from them even then. I mean, it's like, what? A 40-foot jump would kill most people. I mean, it would. I mean, that's, that's 3 stories. I mean, that's...
So what do you think... What do you think's going on with that? Do you think that this is SRA? Do you think this is implant, hybrid or cyborg?
I don't know. I would say this. We're looking at one of 2 things, okay? We're looking at either SRA, satanic super soldiers, which is certainly a possibility, or, which, obviously when they're SRA, they're the demonic altars that come through are demonic beings. They're demonically enhanced. They've got, in some case, superpowers, right? Or we're looking at some sort of hybrid, some sort of, fallen angel hybrid that can pass as human, but it's not human. It's got total fallen angel DNA. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what we're looking at.
Yeah. Folks, if you've never heard of this before, you could just go on YouTube or Google Madness in the Fast Lane. It's a crazy... that was a BBC documentary. That happened in England, didn't it? And
it's in the UK. And what's confusing is, unless you understand, that some of the footage is real and others is a dramatization. And when the dramatization happens, they're using a model that looks like the woman, but her hair is different. So the savvy viewer will go, this is a fake because there's 2 different women. Oh, well, the not-so-savvy viewer actually should realize that when the beginning of the film is all real footage. After that, much of it is reenacted because there's no film. But the film is all real.
Yeah, and that part where they show the first thing you see is like the traffic camera angle when they first see the 2 women walking in the center median of like a 6-lane highway or whatever, and she gets hit.
Yeah.
And then there's the UK's equivalent of Cops, a show where they follow cops around and do a reality TV type thing, and they show up to see, and now these women are standing there like nothing ever happened, and then one of them just out of nowhere bolts into the traffic again, and you actually see her get hit. One of them gets hit by an 18-wheeler, didn't it? It was like a truck or something.
She's hit by an 18-wheeler, and you see her in the wheels. I mean, literally, there's no way you survive from that. Sorry, there's no way. And instead of like laying on the asphalt, crying or begging for help, she's like screaming at the police and spitting at them, clawing at them. It's like, what? I mean, it's just bizarre.
I forgot what she. Do you remember what she was saying? She was saying something wacky, like they're coming, or I don't remember what it was. Do you remember what she was saying?
They want my body parts. Where are the police? Police, police, all that.
Man, that's crazy. In my own research, doing some studies in the same field that you're in the Book of Enoch, it talks about the Watchers that were judged and buried under the sands of the earth. It says that they shall be buried for 70 generations. And Psalm 90, verse 10 says a generation is 70 years, so simple math, 70 times 70. You got 4,900 years, and so I start looking at the chronology, and I'm like, oh my God, 4,900 years from that time puts us right about the early part of the 20th century. And it sort of makes you think, how did we go from horse and buggy to space shuttles, in like no time flat? Did we get some kind of ancient technology given to us?
So I would say yes. I mean, we keep hearing, and I wrote this in the first book, Nephilim. I mean, that's like 11, 12 years ago, but the research goes back to 1990. That the same quid pro quo that we see in the Book of Enoch was, instituted or repeated, I should say, in the modern era. I think that, and we've heard this over and over and over again, that they, so-called ET, which in my opinion are fallen angels, were given access to the population, and traded, or reciprocation for that, we were traded the technology. We were given craft to back engineer and other technology. And I think, look, Corso came out with it, so Corso, and a lot of people look at Corso and go, not so sure. Maybe there's a glimpse, a part of truth. The bottom line with this stuff, and you know it as well as I do, Rob, that it's very difficult to vet anything. It really is. Because you're dealing with interdimensional beings that don't want to be vetted. That's the bottom line. Or you're dealing with government agencies that will not allow you information or access to information. So it's extremely difficult to vet things. I'll just give you one example. Recently I had a gentleman who I know and know fairly well, and his credentials are, needless to say, impeccable. They just are. He in turn has a friend, and they're out of California. They're on the East Coast, all right? He's got a friend who's retired Special Forces. Been retired 20 years or thereabouts, right? And he's known this guy for 20 years. Known him for 20 years, and they go to Bible studies together, that type of stuff. And so after a Bible study, they're having a cup of coffee someplace, and this gentleman kind of looks at him and goes, I've never told anybody this, but I trust you. You're my friend, and I just think it's time to get the word out. He said he was at Area 51, and they were down deep, like 6 levels down, and they were on some sort of mission. And in this room across from them, a very large room, like half the size of a football field, very large room, there was a group of what he could only describe as non-human entities that were giants. They looked human, but they weren't human. And these giants were at least, according to him, 10, 12, 14 feet tall. They were sitting down, so it was hard to estimate their height. Now, that's a very colorful story, and there's certainly no way to vet that. I had another email that came across my desk last week, once again about the giants in the Solomon Islands. The story is similar. Special Forces guy gets called to the Solomon Islands. They're not told what they're doing. It's a reconnaissance, sort of a dust and clean operation where they go in, and the largest giant that they bagged and tagged, so to speak, was 29 feet 8 inches. Now, again, there's no way to vet that. And the guy who told the gentleman who called me is now deceased. So, colorful story. But I maintain that it's like I keep hearing this over and over and over again. All from Special Forces guys with high security clearances, and they come out of the woodwork. Or I'll get emails from people that are very cryptic, and people want to talk, and they'll relate the same kind of thing. And after doing this for a number of years, you get sort of a sense where somebody's just pulling your leg, or they're elaborating on the story, or looking for attention, or they really have information and they're burdened by it and they need to tell somebody. And it's always interesting when I get the latter. So, right away you can see that these people are burdened. They've carried something. They no longer want to carry it alone, so they call up and tell me. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned ET earlier, and my wife and I earlier this year started taking Hebrew classes, learning Hebrew, and it's an amazing language, very fascinating. But in Greek, it says that Jesus says he's the Aleph or he says he's the Alpha and Omega in Greek. Well, in Hebrew, that's the Aleph and Tav. But if you pronounce the Aleph and Tav, if you were to pronounce it, it's Et, E-T. So, you have to look at the poster of Steven Spielberg's E.T., where they're mimicking the Michelangelo painting where God is touching the finger of man, and you got E.T.'s finger touching Elliot. Man, it is totally being set up for a great deception. That's just crazy. You were talking about underground bases and stuff. Are you familiar with Phil Schneider and his story?
Is that the gentleman who's now deceased that was down and fought the Greys?
Yeah.
The guy you're talking about? Yeah, I'm familiar with it,
Is that true? Is that story true? What do you know about it?
Well, I know pretty much probably what you know, just from watching him lecture on it, and there's no way to vet it. I've heard this before from other sources, from other people. It's interesting how he came out and told this, and then he died. Right? So figure. We're in a new era. Schneider came out with this stuff years ago, and we're in an era where we're seeing disclosures. I think that this is my theory, that the old guard who put the kibosh on the Roswell deal and E.T. in general, most of that old guard is gone. Most of it is gone, all right? There still remains, however, a top echelon, a few, which are still in control. Thus, they've got the kibosh, the lid's still on. However, what we're seeing is sort of to use the words of Mikhail Gorbachev, a glasnost, a perestroika. It's sort of an openness, more of an openness now than we've ever seen before in regard to the phenomena. When you get Edgar Mitchell on Kerrang Radio several years back, who just announces, the host is freaked. He goes, "Are you pulling my leg? Is this a joke?" And Mitchell says, he's very calmly, no, this is, Roswell was real, and the governments of the world have covered this stuff up. And then in the last 10 years, UK, France, Belgium, Spain, Brazil, Japan, all releasing classified documents, what were classified documents about the UFO phenomena. And recently there was a U.S. News team, I forget what channel it was on, talking about that if ET should show up, what FEMA is going to do in case of an ET emergency. And they weren't joking around. How they usually poke fun at it. Well, the little green men are back again, and they just, they joke on it like that. They goof on it. It wasn't that way. They were serious. So I think we're looking at slow disclosure a little bit at a time. I think disclosure is happening, literally as we speak. It's happening. The government isn't saying no. They're not being so vociferous and boisterous and telling everybody that Roswell was weather balloon, for the fourth time. Changing their story yet for the fourth time. Roswell case closed nonsense. It's like, in fact, I attended I attended a lecture out at Pepperdine University, and I just posed a question to him, and I said, let me ask you something, sir. How is it that you're telling us that the retrieved bodies were from so-called the crash test dummies dropped out of airplanes when the Air Force didn't do that for another 5 years? I mean, it just doesn't jive. And, of course, he hemmed and hawed and stepped all over and, didn't answer my question, and I just got up and left the room. I mean, this is, you are a shill. You are a plant. And the guy was ex-Air Force. He was ex-Air Force. Telling everybody it was Project Mogul, and the discs that they found were the microphone discs that were put in Project Mogul. I mean, I just sat there, I just busted the thing wide open. I said, "Excuse me, sir, the crash test dummies didn't happen until 5 years later. How was that possible?" "Oh, well, And he rumps himself and changed the subject.
You in your Prophecy, Politics, and the Supernatural CD collection from, I guess, one of the conferences you did a year or two ago, whatever it was, you make mention of the fact that a lot of these major UFO flaps happen right alongside things that are these major UFO flaps happen right alongside things that are very significant things that are happening in Israel. You see those things directly related to what's going on in Israel?
Absolutely. I mean, Gary Stearman has charted that and made a wonderful comparison that every time there's some sort of a war or event in Israel, there's UFO flaps, and I think the two are absolutely correlated together because the fallen one is waiting. We know that scriptural prophecy that he is restrained until he who restrains is taken out of the way. And there's debate amongst Christians that who the he is. And, most people believe it's the Spirit of the living God in the Christians, and so the rapture is the deal. And I get all that. Okay, they may be right. I don't know. But there is another scenario. I look at that verse, and I go, well, first of all, the Holy Spirit is always a comforter. It's not a warrior. And what we see in the book of Revelation is that Michael fights with the fallen one, and, again, overlaying different scriptures, right? And the fallen one is cast down from the second heaven to earth. One of the inhabitants of earth, because the devil, the dragon, Satan, your adversary, is cast down among you, and he knows his time is short. What if, Rob, that this is what happened? That Michael is restraining him literally. The good guys, the good angels are restraining the fallen one and his minions. That's what's restraining him. And at some point in time, when they are taken out of the way and they're kicked out, right, that's when the crafts appear because they have nowhere else to go. You know what I mean? It's interesting.
Yeah.
This really...
Yeah, I mean, that totally shows the origin of this stuff. I mean, why would the Palladians or the Arcturans care about Israel? If they really are aliens.
Yeah.
It totally shows the origin.
The same thing I wrote about Nephilim. Why would a group of Arcturians or Pleiadians or whatever fly a gazillion miles to come here and tell us, well, Jesus really wasn't God? Excuse me? I mean, how do you even know about Jesus, and why do you even care? Right?
Right.
Why do you care? Why are you so vociferous and insistent that Jesus isn't God? Why not tell us about Buddha? No, it's all about Jesus. And they do this over and over again. It's sort of like, in their hubris, they blow it. In their demented genius position, who they are, they just can't help themselves. And they kind of tip their hand and let you know that, oh, it's a fallen one. Thank you so much.
Now, like I said, we've been studying Hebrew and trying to understand the scriptures from a Hebrew perspective, and just past year is the first time we actually started to celebrate the Feast of God. A lot of people think it's a Feast of the Jews, but it's not. It's the Feast of God, and observing the different feasts and what they mean. I mean, they're literally rehearsals. That's why we're doing them, because one day there's going to be a big show, and it's going to happen on those feast days. And one of the things we realized, of course, is that the Jewish calendar, or I should say the Hebrew, the Jews are just from the tribe of Judah, but the Hebrew calendar, everything works on the moon. On our normal calendar, we're solar-based calendar, but they're based on the moon. And something occurred to me about that. I was thinking, and you can actually deal with this. If you could talk about this a little bit, that'd be cool too. On your DVD, on your Watchers DVD, something's weird about the moon, and I got to thinking, okay, if the feasts of God are all based on lunar calendar type stuff, and everything is based on the moon, seems to me the devil's trying to do something either to the Earth or to the moon to mess that whole thing up.
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, in Watchers 2, we discussed that the moon seems to have rotated 135 degrees. This was picked up all over the internet when we went with it, and we A-B'd it, and we quoted a paper by Dr. Lorenzo Iorio, who wrote a book about the eccentricity and anomalous behavior of the moon. He wrote a paper on it, published in Cornell University Library. And so, we contacted Iorio and tried to get him to come on the record. He wouldn't. But, we as YouTubers look at this thing. What's even more interesting, in my opinion, and we talk about this, and I'm actually on my way to do a shoot for Watchers 3. And one of the things I will talk about today is that the Inuit, which are Native Americans up in Alaska, the polar regions,
have openly stated the sun is wrong, the moon is wrong, the winds are wrong, everything is wrong. And these are people that have lived in the same area for hundreds and hundreds of years. And, you know, they know the way the snow is supposed to drift. They know how the moon is supposed to look. I mean, this is how they find their way. I mean, these people are in tune, not like Americans, you know, what's for dinner tonight? Oh, I don't know. What's on Fox News? You know, whatever, right? I mean, we don't. I mean, most people aren't even aware. We just had the fall equinox. Most people aren't aware that we're headed toward the shortest day of the year, you know, which all the pagan feasts are based on. Christmas is based on a pagan feast called the Saturnalia. It has nothing to do with the birth of Christ. And I digress. Right. But the bottom line is, yeah, stuff's happening. The Inuit are talking about it. You know, sun wrong, moon wrong, everything's wrong, wind's wrong. You know, has the earth shifted? I don't know. You know, and it's really, really difficult to get answers from people. I spoke to someone a couple of days ago at Griffith Observatory. I was going, look, you got these nasty floods in Thailand. What's going on? Are the continents sinking? And he goes, no. It's massive flooding, record flooding. They had to open up some dams, or the dams would have burst, and it's causing the lower lands to flood. They've also had very, record monsoons, and so all this is adding up. He goes, look, if the continents were sinking, we'd see massive earthquakes. And then I chimed up and said, yeah, but we're seeing 7.0 earthquakes and greater on a weekly basis. And to that, he just kind of sidestepped it. But, so it's really hard to vet any of this. I'm not a scientist, and so I tread cautiously, or try to tread cautiously. But I believe something's up with, the stuff that we're looking at.
Yeah, for me, most of the stuff, I've been studying this stuff for most of my life, but really intensely for about a year now because of what happened on December 21st, 2010. My wife and I are late-nighters. We often, it's rare that we go to bed before 4 a.m. We work pretty late, but so a lot of times we'll go out for a walk at night, and it was 2:22 in the morning on December 21st, 2010. We were walking, and I looked up, and here's the full moon turning blood red like a decapitated head over the shoulders of Osiris, Nimrod, Orion, the constellation Orion, floating like a decapitated head there for 72 minutes. Now, I'm looking at that thing, I'm going, something's up with this. Well, later that night, Dutch Sense, he's a YouTube user a lot of people may be aware of. He's kind of obsessed with weather anomalies and earthquakes and stuff. Well, he discovered that all the internet seismic servers that, check the earthquake activity, every single one of them went into the black. I mean, literally, the entire planet shook as that blood red moon was floating over the shoulders of Orion. And what do we have, like, a week later? We got millions of dead fish beaching themselves, hundreds of thousands of birds, and this breed specific, by the way. It's not like just a whole bunch of birds. It's like one breed of bird or one breed of fish die-offs. And, here that's going on and on and all of a sudden, there's a shooting there in Arizona, and that drops off the front page news. So you don't hear anything about it anymore. But it's still happening. Something's going on. Have you done any thinking in that?
Sure. Oh yeah, and they also got Dutch. I mean, they got after him, and somebody he ruffled a little too many feathers, and they went after the guy. They went after him. Yeah. His best friend. Two guys show up in the black limos with the AK-47s, and his best friend was laying in the hospital with 5 bullet wounds in him. That ain't coincidence. Yeah, you get too close. You really get too close. And if you start ruffling some of the feathers, you're not gonna last.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of wild stuff. And folks, you've got to get the Watchers 1 and 2 DVDs, and we'll be watching for Watchers 3. When's your ETA on that?
Yep, it's coming up probably on Thanksgiving. We'll probably release it right around Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Awesome. Well, how much time do you have? I know you were on your way to go somewhere. Do you have any more time?
No. I've probably got about another 2 minutes, and then that's it.
Okay, 2 minutes. We didn't really talk on this. Maybe we'll have to do another show. But your book, Cosmic Chess Match, that's your latest edition. Tell us quickly what's Cosmic Chess Match and where can people get it?
Well, the best place to get it, you can either get it on Amazon or go to my website, lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net. It basically begs the question, or tries to inform the reader, I should say, that we are involved in a cosmic war, which has been going on for millennia, and it's about to spill out over onto this planet. Indeed, I postulate that it is already spilling out over onto this planet. So it's very interesting. I promise you, if you get it, you will never look at Scripture the same way. I promise you, because what I show the reader is it's move, counter-move, all throughout the guidebook of the supernatural, i.e. the Bible. So lamarzulli.net, or you can go to Amazon and our stores on Amazon. You can get it there too.
Okay, man, right on. Hey, L.A., I really appreciate you taking the time to come on this morning, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely, Rob. Good hearing your voice. Good talking. I'm sure we'll talk again soon in the future.
Okay, brother. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, that was L.A. Marzulli. We mostly just talked about his DVD series, the Watchers 1 and Watchers 2, and as he said, he's got Watchers 3 coming out in the near future, so you're going to want to watch for that. You can check that out at lamarzulli.net. That's lamarzulli.net. And I'm pretty excited about getting a copy of the Cosmic Chess Match myself because, again, here we are just different. We're on the opposite ends of the country. You know, I'm in the middle of the country here in Dallas. He's over there on the West Coast, on the L.A. area, out in California. And he and other people like him, we're all doing the same kind of research. We're coming to a lot of the same conclusions. So it's not surprising that we come up with some of the same terminology without ever even having talked to each other. I didn't call it the Cosmic Chess Match, but in my research on the God versus God series for my Babylon Rising book, I came to the same conclusion, that there is definitely a move and counter move, where God will make a move and the devil counters it. And the devil makes a move and God counters it. And if you want to check that out, you could go to, I got a new domain for it now. It's BabylonRisingBlog.com. That's BabylonRisingBlog.com. And it's now set up under Book 3. It's starting with the Days of Noah in the God versus God section of that book series. And so I've got a whole bunch of them there just showing how God and the devil have been in this wrestling match and this chess match, whatever you want to call it. There's definitely a move and counter move going on, and it's ramping up in these last days for sure. It's something I just found out recently. Somebody sent me an email regarding the 13 crystal skulls that are actually touring across the country right now, going across various ley lines and whatnot, and Mayan elders performing rituals with these 13 crystal skulls. I'll be definitely looking a little bit more into that. I just got it, got this information, so I'll be following up on that, maybe even do a show on that, see if I can get somebody on here to talk about it. Things are ramping up, folks. We are definitely in the final seconds of this game. The pieces are moving quicker and quicker, and more are being removed from the board, which means the attacks are on. So we appreciate your prayers. If you will keep people like L.A. Marzulli, myself, Tom Horn, Jim Wilhelmsen, a whole lot of other people that are out there trying to research this stuff and get this information out to you, we need your prayers. Please keep us in prayer. But anyway, we love doing this. We appreciate you listening. I appreciate you listening to the Revolutionary Radio Project. And I'm going to wrap this show up for today. And check the show notes. I don't have a regular schedule yet. I probably need to get on a regular schedule so people know when to listen. But right now I'm just kind of, whenever I can get a guest, I put them on, or wherever I got a show I want to do, like my blog series, I'm just kind of randomly scheduling it. So you can just kind of check in every now and then and see if I've got an upcoming show. Or you can look me up on Facebook. My name is Rob Skiba, and send me a friend request, and I usually post things there whenever I got a show coming up. And so I did a show last night where I was reading from my what's now become Book 2 of the Babylon Rising series, which is Return of the Nephilim. And so I recorded actually 3 chapters last night, but I decided to edit it so that I could put the audio on each chapter. So I edited the long show that I did last night into 3 shows. So, but I'm going to re-air those here on Blog Talk. What I did last night was I took the first show.
I mean, Edgar mentions an Apollo astronaut. Why is he telling us this? He's not just blowing smoke. The second DVD is called Signs in the Heavens and Earth. And what we put forth to the viewer on that DVD is the idea that it's not business as usual with all the earthquakes, the famine, floods, volcanic activity, and other anomalies, weather anomalies. It's not business as usual. It's something more. And, of course, I believe that we are in the birth pains. So Signs in the Heavens and Earth sort of touch base with Matthew 24, where Yeshua, Jesus, warns us what will be the sign of the second coming. We're actually working on Watchers 3, which are called Fingerprints of the Supernatural. In that we discuss the Shroud of Turin, the strange anomalous sounds that are being heard throughout the world, certainly the earthquakes, the Torah codes, and other interesting topics. And that should be out around Thanksgiving.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that one. I have your other two, so that should be cool. You mentioned the Shroud of Turin. That's pretty cool, man. You're gonna deal with that in that particular episode?
Yeah, we're talking about the Shroud. We interviewed Dame Isabel Pixek, who brings a very unique perspective to the Shroud. One is she's a particle physicist, so she looks at the Shroud and begins to postulate how the image was created. She's also a world-class muralist, and she, will sign an affidavit that the Shroud is not a painting. It is not a painting. There are no brush strokes. There is no pigment, per se, found on the Shroud. So it's really, he took pictures of the Shroud, and it was interesting, but when he went into his developing room to develop the pictures,
to his utter amazement, and remember, we're in the digital age, so there's no more film, but back then that's what they had, and so, the young people won't understand this, but the oldsters will. They had negatives, which then were developed into positives. So the image that was taken in early photography was a negative image. And to his utter amazement, when he began to develop the film, what should have been a negative image was in fact a positive image, which means that the image on the Shroud is a negative image, which begs the question, how would a forger know that, hundreds of years later, someone would invent photography? Obviously they wouldn't. It's not a forgery. It is, I just call it the fingerprints, or God's calling card, fingerprints of the supernatural. I believe it's the real deal. The forensic evidence alone is overwhelming and contradicts many of the iconographic works of art that we have been inundated with since medieval times, basically showing the Christ figure without a really bloody scourging in most pictures. It's sort of sanitized and cleaned up, and the hands are pierced in the palms. Well, it's what the Shroud shows is that the nail actually came through the back of the hand by the wrist, and that's the only place where you could hang someone, that you could just literally pin them to a cross through those bones there. Just fascinating. The other gentleman that we interviewed was Barry Schwartz. He was the original photographer for the Shroud of Turin Research Project in 1978. Out of 120 hours that they were allowed to examine the Shroud, Schwartz was awake, kind of forced himself with a lot of coffee for over 100 hours. So he brings also a very good perspective to the Shroud.
There's a guy, I don't remember if this is his name or not. I think it's Ian Wilson. Does that name ring a bell?
No, not offhand.
This was back in the late 90s. I was writing a script called The Omega Conspiracy. I think we talked about this before. I had no idea that I.D. Thomas already had a book by that title, but I was writing a script, a screenplay that dealt with cloning from the Shroud of Turin. I kind of had this idea of somebody decided to clone Jesus. It probably wouldn't come out very well. And I actually pitched it. I pitched it at an L.A. pitch conference, but before that, I had posted it on Francis Ford Coppola's website. He's got a website called zoetrope.com where writers can submit and have peer reviews and whatnot. And I had a lot of great reviews, tons of great reviews. I was all excited to go pitch my story. The last review that came in was a 6-page review that totally shredded it. This guy just ripped me apart. And I was like, oh, man. But after I got over it, I thought, you know, if somebody's going to spend the time to write a 6-page review, maybe he's got something to say. So I went back and reread it a few times and realized, oh, man, this script stinks, man. I got to rewrite this. And I'm getting on a plane the next morning to go from Massachusetts to L.A. And so on the plane ride out there, I rewrote an outline for the script, and that's what I pitched. I pitched it to several studios, and the studio that made Close Encounters of the Third Kind was interested in it. They wanted to option it, but so I'm like, crap, I don't have anything, you know. All I wrote was an outline, so I said, hey, I'm in the process of a rewrite. Can I get back to you? And they said, sure. So I left there, and I had parked underneath, what is that place where they have the Academy Awards, Kodak Theater or something like that?
Yeah.
I can't remember. Yeah, I was parked underground there in the underground parking lot, and when I pulled out of the parking lot, I went to turn, and I turned to my left to see if there's any traffic coming. There was a dumpster, and somebody had spray painted on the dumpster, "Clone Jesus?" ? And I'm like, whoa, is this like a sign, you know? And somehow during all of that, I ended up getting connected. I think the guy's name is Ian Wilson. He was one of the guys that was really involved with a lot of the Shroud investigation there for a while. He was out in Boston. We had a lot of interesting conversations about it. So without giving too much away from your DVD, what's your take on it? You think it's authentic?
Oh, absolutely. I think the Shroud is the real deal. It is. I would call it God's calling card, or certainly the fingerprints of the supernatural. You know, they didn't even know what they had until the invention of photography in the 20th century, or let's put it this way, when in the 19th century photography was invented, but the Shroud was photographed by Secunda Pia, I believe, in the 30s, 1939, I believe. Could be wrong on that date. It might be a lot earlier. But he had glass plates, and the story goes, which is just a wonderful story.
The Nephilim trilogy made the CBA's bestsellers list and continues to thrill readers a decade later. He actually received an honorary doctorate from Pacific International University for his work on that trilogy. So Dr. L.A. Marzulli is also the author of the nonfiction work, Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, which shows how the current political landscape may indeed be bringing about the fulfillment of ancient biblical prophecy. One of his latest works, The Alien Interviews, features 17 intense interviews with people who have been directly involved with the UFO phenomena and alien abductions. L.A. has lectured on this and other fascinating subjects at conferences and churches all over America, as well as on numerous national radio and television shows across the airwaves. And now it's my privilege to welcome him here to the Revolutionary Radio Project for the second time, actually. L.A., are you there?
I certainly am, Rob. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man, great to have you back. You also have something I didn't mention in your intro there. You have a DVD series you're working on called The Watchers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we do. Watchers, the kickoff of the series is called just Watchers, and the subtitle is UFOs Are Real, Burgeoning, and Not Going Away. It's sort of a primer into the UFO phenomena. It's a great DVD to give a skeptic, because all we're doing is showing that something's going on here, folks. We don't tell you what it is, but something is going on. It's high strangeness. The phenomena exists. I love when Edgar Mitchell comes on. We have a voiceover of Edgar Mitchell saying that, you know, Roswell was a cover-up. They've been here. The governments of the world have covered this